So basically, why is Vodacom here, right? Vodacom is a strategic connectivity partner to Geotab, and that's global, yeah. And from that perspective, what does Vodacom do in the IoT space? So Vodafone is a global leader in the IoT space by Gartner and Forrester. And and today I'm going to take you through some of the trends that we're seeing in the market, macro and micro. And I'll be alluding to a technology stack, which is low-powered wide area network. And within our scope, which is licensed spectrum, which would be NB-IoT. It might get a little bit technical, please forgive me. So out of these trends that I'm going to allude to, there are 6 of them. First one, future-proofing, right? Most of these devices that you're building out is a lifespan of 5 to 10 years, okay? I don't know if you know, the 2G, 3G networks are being sunsetted, so that means they're going to be decommissioned, all right? What is the replacement technology for 2G, 3G? And that's NB-IoT from a replacement technology perspective. I'll allude to some of the key findings and facts and scope within NB-IoT. The second one is device ecosystem, all right? Most of the telematics devices are becoming gateways, right? They're becoming hubs for private area networks, right? These private area networks are either Bluetooth or LoRa, and the scope extends past the telematics device that's getting data from the vehicle. This is going into the cabin, into the trailer, into the tires, and into the goods, okay? So that scope has increased. The value proposition for the telematics gateway or device has increased because of the track and trace that Colin alluded to, that you need to control the temperature of the goods, the security of the goods, and the handling of the goods, yeah? The other one is multi-device. Multi-device because out of a South African context that I understand, where we have one telematics device, which is a deep install. I'm not too sure if any of you understand the scope, deep, medium install, and shallow install. And deep install, people know where it is, right? So the syndicates goes out, pulls out the device, and moves that vehicle. So some of our partners are using 3 devices, in some cases 4. Primary deep install, shallow install, a dummy device, and then a narrowband device, a narrowband IoT device, where they put this into the frame. So it's using battery technology, so you don't need power from the vehicle, and you're able to deliver on that. The other trend that we're seeing is exotic vehicles that one of the previous speakers alluded to. We're seeing it from a mining industry, but below ground, underground mining, and we're seeing forklifts as some of those equipment that needs telematics. And then from the edge perspective, we're seeing these devices are getting smarter, right? They've got onboard computing and AI built into it. So these are what's happening in terms of the macro microscope, yeah? Why NB-IoT from a Vodacom perspective? Firstly, it's a licensed spectrum, okay? We can control the quality and the speed of those device of the connectivity, whereas previously, if you use the unlicensed spectrum, you have interference and so forth, right? Jamming and so forth. So from business continuity and quality of service and guarantee of service, we're using NB-IoT, and we're leveraging off our existing ecosystem and coverage and base stations and so forth. Why NB-IoT? The other reason is the scope it brings, right? It brings better battery life, better frequency delivery, better throughput, and better penetration, right? The reason why some of these telematics devices are being used for on NB-IoT in most of the world is because of the penetration, especially on the trains and so forth, yeah? These are some of the scopes that we use NB-IoT, and especially on the logistics transportation side and warehouse and distribution, which is you guys familiar with, we use it from a trace and tracks perspective, right? We have a customer between the corridor between Durban and the DRC, where they have to track the driver, the horse, the trailer, and the goods. And alluding to David's earlier speech, is understanding the route as well. So they have choke points based on the route that they're driving. They have to have security companies escort them through those choke points, right? Because they've got high value goods. And what we do is we track and trace all scope of that vehicle ecosystem, because sometimes the driver is in cahoots with the syndicate. So if his heart rate goes up at a choke point, we know that he's anxious about something. The syndicates figure out that the horse has got tracking equipment on it. They unhitch the horse, bring their own horse, take the trailer to a location, and unpack the trailer. Then they realize that the trailer frames have got tracking devices, and they just start pulling out the bales and such. And we found out that putting tracking devices in the bales provided additional security. Now the syndicates leave them alone and goes on to the next guy. Yeah. How does NB-IoT compare to the other low-powered wide area network technologies? From our perspective, it's bidirectional, it's secure, and it has the same throughput as current 2G, which is called traditional GSM. Yeah. So from that perspective, it's added additional security as an overlay of that. The price point is also. No, yeah. The price point also is reduced. So from a replacement perspective, it's critical, right? Because the rest of the networks, which I'll allude to in a later slide, shows that most of the technology telcos are cutting over from 2G, 3G because they need that spectrum. 2G, 3G, if you don't know, is high power, high demand frequency, and is not as effective, yeah? So alluding to some of those options, they are able to provide better coverage, better throughput, better support, and better security. This is key because businesses are moving, traditional tracking fleet businesses are moving up the value chain. So if you're moving up the value chain, you want to create an ecosystem, a device ecosystem that is future-proof and multi-use, right? And this is very critical for that. So from a traditional 2G, 3G, 4G perspective, high bandwidth, high performance, and poor battery life. And with NB-IoT, better bandwidth, lower bandwidth throughput, higher frequency transactions with lower packet size and payload size, yeah? Longer battery life and low cost on devices. This is critical if you have to put sensing devices throughout the value chain that you want to track and trace. From an adoption perspective, why we chose NB-IoT and the deployment that we're using from a standalone deployment. So we're refarming the 2G, 3G spectrum in some of the locations that we have coverage, right, to provide that. The reason because of the spectrum scarcity, and from a physics point of view, we are able to provide that. Yeah, this is imperative because we're using existing technology, existing base station, existing sunken infrastructure. So the cost to deploy is much cheaper than like a Sigfox or a LoRa and so forth. Yeah. These are some of the members for IoT, NB-IoT. And this is critical. If you can see most of the telcos, huge telcos, OEMs, equipment manufacturers and so forth, they've committed to the standard. And if they've committed to the standard, this from a future-proofing perspective for image technology, devices, and sensors, commits that the roadmap is there. So in terms of understanding if you have to do a replacement technology for 2G, which most of these devices have, how do we use the uplink and downlink and the throughput for that, right? This is imperative because the amount of data that you're going to use for those devices, be it video, telematics data, and so forth, you need to understand the throughput, so you choose the fit-for-purpose technology to drive that. I'm going to jump the slide. This is a bit too technical. From an exchange perspective, right, NB-IoT has better coverage, better throughput than traditional GSM. And this is imperative because if you have to do warehouse distribution with container management, example, we're busy with opportunity to do container storage areas. And if you have to understand with the Y, Z, and X axis where the container is stacked on a ship in the yard, we're able to do that using the NB-IoT technology. And with containers, to go through the container, to find the container behind that, normal GSM technology doesn't work, right? So these are some of the key reasons we use NB-IoT. And then providing, like I alluded to, better coverage, better throughput, and better battery life. From a security point of view, it's 3GPP and ITSI compliant. And from a platform point of view, we are GDRP compliant. Vodacom, Vodafone has to comply at a global layer, global perspective, because we are a multinational and we are listed on the London Stock Exchange, and we have to provide these compliance. It is critical to manage these things because whatever technology you use going forward, be it LoRa, Sigfox, NB-IoT, Bluetooth, and so forth, if you compromise your connectivity, you're compromising your data, your platform, and your solution. In terms of the technology stack, we have ISO 27001 certified. This is cybersecurity compliance. It is in line with the 3GPP and ITSI government standard bodies, and the encryption level goes up to 256. So these are critical requirements that we understand, that when you're building out on your technology and when you're building out your devices, that you're able to encrypt from sensor, from chipset upwards, right up to your application or your app. Yep. So currently, Vodacom has deployed since 2017, late 2017, 2018. We've been deploying NB-IoT throughout the country, and we have coverage throughout Gauteng and the major metropolitans, and we're rolling out as we go through with customer business requirements. We've got municipalities, transport and logistics companies, warehouse and distribution companies, container yards, and so forth that we're busy deploying. In terms of our rollout throughout the rest of the world, we've already deployed in the following regions, but it's imperative to understand that if you're a logistics company and you're providing services cross-border as well, that the technology choice is supported cross-border and internationally as well. Our deployments is private and public. So from a security and requirements perspective, you're able to do it over the internet. Doesn't mean that it's over the internet, it's not safe. It's got an encrypted tunnel across. What we find that customers prefer to have APN connectivity directly into their LAN environment. So we're able to do a direct integration into their IT environment, yeah? Which is the second option here. So basically, NB-IoT is live. You go get a SIM card, put in the APN that you're looking for, which is nbiot.co.vodacom.co.za, and you're ready to rock and roll. So from that perspective, you can test your devices, validate your devices, and you can test. So the platform that we provide with NB-IoT is called GDSP, Global Data SIM Platform, or Services Platform. This helps you to manage thousands of SIMs throughout the world with different profiles and different scope and different rates. And we can provide you security, business continuity with that. And this platform allows you to manage your risk, manage your profiles, and deliver on business risk. The GDSP platform has multiple states, inactive, active tests. This is imperative, right? So if you have to install it, what we found with our working with some of the OEMs like Toyota and so forth was once they build the vehicle, it goes to a staging area, holding area, and then to a dealer, right? And you don't want to pay for those transactions when it hasn't been activated. So we've got, apologies, we've got active ready, right? So active ready means it's active, it's tracking, but you're not billing as yet, right? And we can move between those profiles as you see fit. You can integrate that into your CRM, your TMS system, your planning, routing system, and so forth to manage those workflows. Cool? Yeah, end-to-end communication, support, and connectivity. And that's me. Thank you.
What does NB-IoT stand for?
Narrowband IoT. So narrowband meaning it takes up a smaller frequency spectrum time slot than a traditional voice or data slot, and you're able to provide faster, frequently transmissions of data than a traditional way, and it's cost effective.
So it does cost less than 2, 3G?
Yeah. So that's why it's so inefficient, right? That's why telcos are mandatory cutting over, because it's inefficient to use the spectrum because it's a scarce resource. Secondly, is the cost and power to manage that transaction. Whereas NB-IoT and 5G will be cheaper.
Another question, what does APN mean?
APN is Application Private Network.
Cool, thanks.
Cool, pleasure. Any more questions? Yes, David?
Is anyone in South Africa marketing a full unit with GPS trackers that we could talk about today?
Yeah. There's quite a few. There's pet trackers, there's people trackers, there's device trackers. Thank you. I just want to find out what do you want to use it for? And so it's funny you say that. Transnet went out into RFP. So Transnet went out of RFP to track every wagon for the same reason. And there's multiple device manufacturers that do that. With tilt, vibration, there's multiple sensor ecosystem. Well, the other thing was it depends on what you're looking for, right? So we have customers that we're deploying 8 million units on, which is NB-IoT with 4G, right? So like one of the trends, as I told you, it becomes a gateway, right? They're using the telematics device, NB-IoT for the traditional telematics, and Wi-Fi module, 4G module linked to the Wi-Fi module to provide content, media, rewards, and loyalty, so that they can gamify driver behavior and change scope in terms of how they reward the driver. Yeah, it is. Some cool opportunities we're working on. And then we're also working with air freight as well, right? So you track the air freight all the way from dispatch right up into the plane. After it hits a certain altitude, it switches off, goes into sleep mode. Once it comes back to a certain altitude as it lands, comes on, tracks you all the way again. So yeah, cool. Thank you.